Hi folks, I'm David Ridge. I'm a solutions consultant at PagerDuty, and in this video we're going to have a quick overview of how you can manage your PagerDuty configuration as code using Terraform from HashiCorp. So before I get into it, I just want to do a quick overview of what we're actually going to see in this video. So Terraform allows you to both provision and then maintain the configuration of numerous different technologies. And in this video, we're going to be using Amazon Web Services and PagerDuty. So using the configuration that I'll go through later in the video, what we'll be doing is we'll be automatically spinning up an EC2 instance, and on that will be an Nginx server. We're also going to spin up 2 CloudWatch alarms with specific metrics looking at that instance. On the PagerDuty side, what we'll do is automatically provision a number of users. Those users will be put into schedules so that the people who are on call are on various different rotations. Those schedules will be stacked inside escalation policies. So if the primary responder doesn't acknowledge within 5 minutes, it goes to the secondary and so on. And that escalation policy will be assigned a particular service. So that service will actually be receiving the alarms that we have automatically spun up from CloudWatch and any other kind of technology that we can provision, so that whenever we have any issues with our EC2 instance, we know that the people who are on call will automatically be receiving these notifications. So how does Terraform actually manage to do this? Well, the first thing is how it interacts with these different technologies is using providers. So all of this information is well documented on the Terraform website. But I'll just be taking a high-level walk through some of this. So a provider is basically how Terraform interacts with the various APIs from different technologies. So the 2 that I'm working with are the AWS provider and the PagerDuty provider. So you can see here the ways in which you can interact with the AWS provider are quite numerous. And similarly with PagerDuty, all the major objects that we're going to be talking about are all documented here. So things like users, teams, services, integrations, escalation policies, they're all documented and with example usage on the Terraform website. When you put together this code, you essentially come and create, now this is my own GitHub here, but what we can do is we create these various different configuration files. The .tf means it's a Terraform file, and when we run Terraform, Terraform will run all of these together. Now, how that looks when we actually put it together, obviously varies depending on the different configuration that we have. But in this instance, you can see here that we've created our AWS topic, and that AWS topic has an endpoint based in PagerDuty that references the service integration. And that service integration we actually create within our PagerDuty configuration file here. So the great thing about Terraform is that it actually understands the dependency between this AWS configuration and this PagerDuty configuration, and will automatically order these things so that we need to provision the first in order to get the reference to the second. Once all these configurations are actually put together, we can then go ahead and run what we call a plan. So the plan is the configuration of all of these things together, and Terraform is the thing that puts it together and runs them. Now, what I'm doing in this case is I have a completely empty PagerDuty environment. I also have a completely empty Amazon account, and so a completely empty CloudWatch account. And what Terraform is understanding, and this is getting into the second half of what Terraform does, is it understands the state of the applications or the services that it's looking at. And so it knows that because none of the configuration that I have defined in the plan exists, it means it needs to go and create all of it. So you can see here it's churning through the various different things. It's already just created that CloudWatch integration there, and now it's going ahead and creating the subscription for the SNS topic. So as I mentioned, understanding that configuration And the state of that configuration is something that is extremely useful, not just for creating, but also when we then go to edit things. And I'll get into that in a second. So as you can see here, Terraform is churning away. Now this is Terraform Enterprise. And one of the handy things about Terraform Enterprise is that it can store all your different variables as sensitive. So my PagerDuty API key, my specific secret key for AWS, they're all stored inside here, so I don't necessarily have to worry about where they need to be stored and things. You can see that this plan has just finished, and so what I can do now is hopefully refresh, and what that has done is actually provisioned a new service that has the both the CloudWatch and the New Relic integrations on them. We have the escalation policy in here, and that is these various different levels, and in that schedule we can have our various different users. Now, so that's the first part of Terraform's power, right? So just being able to automatically provision all those different objects and instances. So you can imagine if you have a development platform, it means that every time you present or create a new application, every time you create a new instance of something, you can automatically provision alarms, metrics, and PagerDuty services to mean that you have this kind of baseline coverage of the 2 or 3 or 5 different metrics that all applications within your infrastructure should have. You can guarantee that because they come as standard. Outside of that, if I wanted to, for example, make a change, and this is where we manage things at scale. So a lot of the configuration, both in AWS and in PagerDuty, is done either at the UI or at the API layer. And so how do we track all of that when we're talking about having hundreds of different services across many different teams? So one of the main ways that we can do this is using configuration as code. So for example, what I've done here is I've added a new user called Sarah, and I've also added Sarah to the schedule. Now, when I save this, if I pop up to my GitHub, you'll see that because all this code, all this configuration is stored as code, it's the same as me making a code change to any sort of application. So I can say added Sarah here, and I can commit that code directly into my repository. Now you can have many branches, you can have pull requests and things like that. For convenience sake, I'm just pushing this directly here. Well, what that has done is you can see that I have recorded that change. It's been tracked, and automatically Terraform has picked up that there has been a change, and it's understanding the state that my PagerDuty config was in versus the state that it's now in. It's understood that the difference is that I've added Sarah, and now it is applying that change. And what we have is we have a completely traceable, auditable, and manageable configuration, the same way that we would have if you were making a code change to an application. So what I can see here is that if I go to this escalation policy, and I go to my automation schedule, we now have Sarah added as well. So in that scenario, not only do we have the ability to just provision across multiple objects, multiple applications, being able to chain together multiple technologies, but also we have the ability to manage the configuration of each of these as code. Thanks very much for your time.